Welcome, everybody, to the first episode of the FromPenn2Broad podcast. This is a new project that we're launching tonight, specifically on our fan page. I'm your host, Sean, and joining me tonight is Ryan.
Hello.
And Dave.
Hey.
And we're launching this new podcast. It's really a new project for us here, and most of you have in the past recognized mostly things that we launch and talk about, I guess, on our fan page. And last year we spent a lot of time basically running our own website, and we stopped that back in July of 2016. And we wanted to talk about that a little bit tonight as to why we stopped the page and where we're going from here as we move forward. So we'll talk about that tonight. We'll also get into the news that broke with the Royals this past week with Larry Corville announcing, along with Drew Bell, that he'll be leaving the organization at the end of the year. And we're going to also touch upon Jack Gulati's purchase of the Allen Americans. And if there's any time, we'll also get into some Flyer stuff. But back to what we first want to talk about is basically what happened to the website. And it started running the website back in 2015 and launched it, I guess, in October, Ryan?
Yes, October 1st.
October 1st was our first official launch, and we brought Dave in right around November?
I remember it was like a month or two into the season. It was relatively early on, but a good month or two was in the books.
Yeah, and we also had Devin, who started writing in the beginning, and we quickly found out that, number one, for Devin, writing wasn't exactly his best thing. And number two, it was really just a lot of work for all of us. And what stopped it, at least for me, is my wife ended up getting pregnant with our first child. And you quickly find out as you're preparing for a kid and all of that it's a shit ton of work. It really is. And so was keeping up with the website as you're doing it part-time. None of us were getting paid by any means. All of the financing that took place came out of all of our pockets. We did bring in a sponsor at one point, and honored our contract with them, and they really helped us just get over the edge on some of the upgrades that we wanted to make to the site, and we had a good run. I'd say we got about anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 views a month, and for a starter site, we really, I think, in my opinion, knocked it out of the park. We first launched the website mainly because of Ryan, to be honest with everybody. And for those of you that don't know, Ryan is studying journalism, and he suffers from autism. Not that that's any kind of an excuse or crutch for him, but having resources like us to help him start some of this was really our goal here, and to help him with the project to basically get you to I guess start a resume was really our goal there. And I don't know, Ryan, you tell me, I mean, did you feel like you accomplished that goal?
Yeah, I learned a lot.
Right. And so I guess the podcast is really step 2 for Ryan. And the idea there is, it's still a lot of work to run it. Dave and I are no experts at editing an audio file by any means, so bear with us tonight as we get through this. But really what drove us the most, it wasn't the coverage of these guys or throwing rumors out there or talking about what was going on behind the scenes. In the beginning, I think that kind of motivated us, but as we moved along, we quickly learned that, hey, this is really Ryan's home here. And for Ryan, he was covering the love of his life, which was the Reading Royals. And for those of you that have never met Ryan or have seen Ryan, you can see him at every home game. You're in what, section?
124.
124?
Row P, seat 4.
So he's usually the crazy guy jumping up and down, waving
Rally towel.
Rally towel. And how many jerseys do you wear?
At least 4 now.
4 jerseys, and you rotate them?
Yep. Usually see me wearing autism ones now.
So, Dave, I don't know how many jerseys you have, but Ryan's
It's definitely a collection. I know if you would count Royals and Flyers, it's upwards of 20, I would say.
right. Myself, I mean, I'm a collector, but they're mostly for, I guess, wall decor. I mean, as we're sitting here in my basement, I guess you can actually see all the jerseys on the wall. And we have what, seven. I think both Ryan and I just bought another one tonight, with it being the autism awareness game. So the money goes towards a great charity there and all of that. But back to the website, I guess you could say, and so the traction was there. We were running everything and it was running well, but it just became a ton of work. And for us, I mean, I didn't really see the growth. I really thought we capped out at around 10,000. And at the end of the hockey season, that was right around when my wife was starting ready to deliver. So my daughter was born in March 19th of 2016. And, for me, I couldn't finish and give my full attention at night to editing and doing all of that. And to be able to, make sure there's no viruses on the site or anything like that, I mean, it's a ton of work. And so I just didn't have the time for it. I knew Ryan at that time wasn't able to, figure all that stuff out on his own. So, the decision was made that we were going to pull the plug when the license for that site ended up stopping.
It was a pretty big financial burden too, because after July, the price to maintain the website would have gone up substantially.
Yeah, I think it ended up actually tripling when we were looking to do that. And, we could have done things like shop the domain around and maybe even went from a .com to a .org or to a .net or something like that. And we have that option. I think if these podcasts really start to take off, instead of using the domain server that we had, we can always shop around. But to be able to find a site where it's, basically self-sustaining and can almost run itself, I mean, that would ultimately be the dream, or something that, besides WordPress and all the different apps that you can download with it, something that would be a little bit easier and user-friendly for Ryan would be nice. And Ryan, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think your concentration is really not on running a day-to-day site. I think you're more into the social media part.
Yeah, I'm very popular. If you go for FromPenn2Broad on Facebook, most of the posts are by me. I post player movement, game action for both us and the Phantoms.
Right.
Sometimes the Flyers.
And you, for the most part, Ryan, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of the stuff we post anymore is not really opinionated, and we've kind of steered away from that.
Yeah, not anymore.
We did a little bit of that in the beginning with the website, and I think, for Devin really wanted to concentrate on, let's give our opinions, let's really do a lot of that. And, for us, I mean, it was cool. I mean, you could go up in the media box. I mean, Drew Bell was awesome with us. He gave us access from day one. Larry treated us just like he would any other media guy that was in there. I could tell you just, and we'll talk about some of that here. After a loss that was the last place on earth he wanted to be was in a room with Larry, especially if he had a goalie that, gave up 6 or 7 goals on one night.
Well, on the bright side, we all did survive the season, so...
We did.
Yeah.
We did. But, I mean, how many times did we hear, okay, guys, this is off the record?
More than I can count.
I was going to say, you definitely need 2 hands. Maybe more than that.
Yeah, and we respected a lot of that, too. I mean, if it was something where, there's always a moment in time where someone just wants to vent a little bit, and you have to know where to not cross the line, I think was a big part for us. And, we got to meet Jason with the Reading Eagle, who has been just an awesome guy to really, for Ryan at least, just sit there and talk to. Ryan, I don't know how much you got to interact with Jason, but...
Pretty much, actually.
Yeah, I mean, he was a great resource to talk to. And then there's always Marlon, who's with BCTV, and, Marlon will see us. I mean, we're all season ticket holders, so, I mean... Marlon will see us walking around the concourse and will come right up to us and, just talk about the good old days up there or what's going on. And it didn't even have to be Royals related. I mean, it could be Eagles, it could be Flyers. He was a great mentor and resource for all of us too. So, with the goal really being for Ryan to, basically get his feet wet, I think we accomplished that.
I agree.
So that brings us to step 2, which is kind of what we're doing tonight. With our first official podcast taking place. And, I don't know how many of these we're going to do. I think we'd all like to be able to do them weekly, maybe bi-weekly. I don't know if we're going to continue to always concentrate on the Reading Royals. I know the season's wrapping up right now. I don't know if we'll need media access with all these teams moving forward to basically talk about what we want to talk about here, but I think we're going to do a lot more on not only the professional sports coming up. I know the Phillies are getting ready to start. The Eagles are going into an off season right now. But certainly, we're going to continue covering, the Reading Royals and all that. We have a coaching search, guys, coming up. How exciting is that?
It's strange because, like, Larry Corville's been here for, 9 years?
Since 2008,
Since 2008?
It's been a long time. It's definitely the end of an era in Reading.
Yeah, and I think the fans are really interested in who's going to take over next. And, I'll be the first one to admit I'm glad I'm not Drew Bell sitting there. Fidgeting, yeah, that's a great way to describe it. And sitting there, this is a huge decision.
Big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and I don't know, where Drew's mindset is going into this coaching search. Is he going to look for another ECHL guy? Is he gonna rely on the Flyers, to help him in this search? I know, Jack just bought another team, so how much involvement is Jack really going to have in something like this? So this podcast is basically our stepping stone to really talk about some of these issues. And, we can sit here and write all day, but from a viewer standpoint, how many guys are going to sit there and read everything? And I think, we tried some things on the website where we were trying to make it easier for guys to read. We'd break up stories into segments. The thought process there is, you could scroll down on your phone. Most of the people that were visiting our site, I think, were doing it on their mobile phone. We were pretty quick on getting stories, at least a game wrap up. As soon as the third period buzzer went off, we had the story out there. We were.
That was definitely where most of the traffic was coming from.
Yeah, we got a ton of it. Yeah. How many people are sitting there waiting in those garages, just bored because the person behind them slamming on their horn, because I don't know if they're that impatient or they just think it's funny to hear it echo. I've never been one to slam on my horn like that, but
usually I'm only using my horn if someone's about to hit me, and even then, more often than I'm not doing it because I'm too busy reacting than blaring on the horn.
Yeah, and Reading isn't exactly the city you want to be hitting your horn in either. So this is really, this podcast is now something else that you guys can listen to while you're in the car. You don't have to sit there and pretend like you're texting and driving almost while you're trying to read a story. And
I was going to say, the driver can now participate in this.
Yeah, exactly, which is a good thing too.
Safely, I might add.
Yeah, that's true. So let's get started. I know the first topic we really want to talk about tonight is the Jack Galati purchase of the Allen Americans and what drove that. I know for myself, when the story first came out, I almost overreacted, and I'll be the first one to admit that because, I get a text from Devin, right, in the middle of my work day, thankfully during my lunch break, where, hey, here's Jack's on, the Allen Americans site talking about a team that he just purchased, and I basically just said, bullshit, you're lying. Why wouldn't something, come out? So
it was definitely like blindsided, because I did not see this coming at all. I don't really know who did see this coming. It was pretty much right out of left field.
Well, Jason had a tweet the day before about a press conference now, and he said there's connection with the Royals, and I was like, wonder what he's talking about. Yeah,
so I think who had the story almost right away or had a sniff of it was really Devin. Devin was right on top of, hey, the Stevens brothers, right, which owned the Allen Americans, and I believe they owned Wichita
and Tulsa.
Yeah, so they had other teams that they had owned in the ECHL. So it's not uncommon for an owner, I guess, to own multiple teams in this league. But, Devin, he flat out just called it and said, hey, something's going to happen here. And by calling it, we have a group text that goes around, right? And we all basically just sit there and talk Royals hockey all the time, if not the Flyers and the trade deadline. And he just kept mentioning it. He kept saying, hey, something's going to go on here. And I wouldn't be surprised if it's Jack who's getting involved here. I didn't believe him, so when I heard an interview was coming up or a press conference, I kind of got angry right away. Not because Devin broke it first, but I just didn't want to believe it. So when I got home, right, I didn't know that the Royals. I guess I should have, being a guy that spent time in the media. I should have looked there and looked up. Hey, did they come up with anything? Did they say anything? So I went to the computer right away, and the Royals fan group, right? I mean, that's like the definition of overreaction in my book. Is a lot of stuff that can happen there.
Oh yeah,
and it's a great fan group page. For people to go to. If you're not a member, I highly suggest going to it. I think a lot of us get wrapped up in people's opinions on the site. We almost take it to heart, which I always laugh. It's social media, guys. It's not the end of the world. And the one thing about social media, and I just, want to just touch upon this real quick. A lot of people don't realize social media is exactly that. It's a communication tool, right? And I don't think we use it properly in this world. I think a lot of people overreact because they just don't know how to read something that someone's writing, right? You can't tell when someone's being sarcastic through a tweet or through a post, and for me that's frustrating. So this podcast, is you can sense our sarcasm, which is kind of nice. At least. Yeah, exactly. So so for me, I posted, I basically poked fun at the "Are you happy?" motto that the Royals came up with when Jack first purchased the team. I thought I was being clever and sarcastic when I posted that, and just for me, I wanted an answer, and I didn't know that the Royals came up with something, and then
I had no idea about it either.
Yeah, neither until he posted on your thing, Sean.
Yeah, and then someone posted the Channel 69 WFMZ story, which had some quotes from Jack on there, which I thought were pretty good.
And the Royals had also posted a statement to their website, which I hadn't seen it, and apparently Mark Thompson also sent out an email, but I know I'm not on that list.
Yeah, and I didn't get the email, but and like I posted on there, I mean, to me, hey, they satisfied that requirement, right? They came out, they talked about it, they said flat out, it's not going to change anything here, and that brought some comfort to me.
It's personally good to know that, because I know my first thought was, if Jack is going to be getting invested with Allen, how much of those resources that the team's been getting are going to be going there instead of here?
Right.
It was very reassuring to know that it's not going to change anything here. Business is going to be as usual. Things are going to be very different without Coach Corville, but we're going to be going on as normal as we possibly could. Not going to have to worry about losing anything to Allen.
Right. And I thought it was interesting. I saw that, during the owners' meetings that, I think it was WFMZ that covered this on their website, that Jack is going to represent, at the owners' meetings, it's going to be Jack who represents Allen.
Yes.
And is it his son? I think.
Yes. His son is going to be representing us at these meetings.
And I don't remember his son's first name, so I don't want to butcher it. On the air here, I guess we can call it now. So I'm not going to speculate what his son's name was. Ryan, if you want to try and look that up, you can, and then we'll throw it out there. But
we'll have it in about half a minute.
Yeah. So for me, it's exciting times here in Reading, and attendance is up 10%. I've seen people posting that. On the fan group pages and all that. And you can look up the stats, too, from ECHL.com. You can see what the average attendance is.
Just being there, you can see the attendance is up. Because typically, really, your only big attendance night that would be over 3,000 would be Saturday nights. I've been seeing that number get topped now Fridays and Sundays.
Right.
Even some midweek games, I've seen that number pushing 3,000. So, there's definitely a lot more people getting out to the arena, which is it's great for this team.
Yeah, and they had on Autism Night tonight? Just over 5,000 tonight, Ryan? Or?
Yeah, and go back to Jack Galati for a second. His oldest son, his name is David.
It's David, so it's David Galati.
I would have said Dan. I knew it was a D.
I was going to guess Mike, so I'm...
I was thinking David, but I'm I better check it out.
So we were close.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. So it'll be David Galati who's representing the Royals at the ownership meetings, and I'd be curious to know if David's going to have a say in the next head coach, too.
I would imagine so, especially if he's... I would imagine with Jack just buying the team, he'll probably have more of a hand there than he will here, so I wonder if he's going to be more or less passing the reins over to his sons, and hopefully he'll get a bit of a rundown on what to do. I'm sure Drew will be a big voice for how things start to go from here.
Yeah, he's going to have to be, and I know Jack has relied heavily on Drew in the past, and for good reason. I think Drew's doing some really good stuff here. He's certainly personable. I mean, he'll come right up to you and talk to you, and he treats you like a human being, which a lot of us forget
rare.
about. Yeah.
It's rare in these days to find someone where you're more than a number or a statistic.
Yeah. So I guess to go back on Drew, let's talk about what's on his palette moving forward. I know he just had the Ryan Crothers night tonight. It seemed to be an emotional night for him, and that brings up the conversation. What do you do now that you have Larry leaving? And I fully expect the Royals to do something. At the last home game for Larry, probably another promotional idea. Could be one of these, I wouldn't be surprised if they do something special for Larry or do some kind of ticket sale.
It's like, I believe he's already on the Wall of Honor.
He is.
So
Yeah.
I think he made it is he listed as a player?
Yes,
Or
he was the first one to be enshrined.
Was he really? Okay.
Yes, and he also has his jersey number retired.
he also, I believe, currently the only jersey to be retired
Correct.
by the team.
So, the last thing they could do for him is basically erect a statue. Which this is just us being funny, and I don't know where you'd put that.
I don't know where you're going to get money for a minor league team to be erecting a statue. But I mean, I don't really know what more the team could do besides something like that.
Yeah, so
Maybe get that guy to come paint a picture of him while he sings the national anthem or something.
That'd be cool.
yeah, so that would be pretty cool. But Jason, with the Reading Eagle, had broke that story about Larry leaving, and again, this is me on my lunch break, right? I get another text from Devin with the story Larry Corville's leaving at the end of the year, and it's Devin's on top of the Royals, man. I mean, he really is, and unfortunately, he couldn't join us tonight. But I know on some upcoming shows, we're certainly going to get Devin to be part of the
I imagine
conversation.
most shows will be at a more reasonable hour.
Yeah, I mean, this one's 1:00 in the morning at this point, so this is our 5th run at trying to do this. So we've been doing pretty good. We're still up. We had our coffee. We're good to go. But let's talk about what do we think happened. I mean, in Jason's story, and I tend to believe Jason as much as anybody else, and Larry had some quotes in there about I guess the financials behind it. He didn't come across as being very happy about the move. I think that's fair to say. And I can understand, we don't know the numbers and the dollars and cents behind it. So it's unfair for us to speculate what was too much money and what was considered, I guess, a low ball.
It's like, I really don't know if, how much a coach is going to be paid compared to other leagues.
And I don't see, just from the conversations I've had with Jack, he doesn't come across as an owner who's quite, I guess, concerned about the budget. If he was, I would have seen Drew, I guess, a little bit more unhappy in the day-to-day, arena sites that you see him at. Just talking to other people that are in the organization, Jack really hasn't, Jack doesn't come across, I guess, as putting pressure on the staff to, hey, we need to make money, and that's important from an ownership group. Is, hey, they come across as...
He struck me as he wanted attendance numbers up more than profit. Like, he wanted people in the seats.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors.
And you saw, with 10% increase, it's something that happened.
Yeah, and I've heard rumors and conversations from other Royals employees that, he sets goals, monthly goals, and, the goal that was thrown around last year, or was it 2 years ago, in his first year was, one sellout a month. Was really the big thing for those guys. And, those are reasonable goals as an owner. I mean, those are things that Drew can, hey, let's this month concentrate the budget on this promotion because we know we can sell this place out. And they did that, with the guy with Duck Dynasty. That was the first real eye-opener for me is,
the first kind of celebrity appearance.
Yeah.
They had a couple more that
George
year.
Animal Steel.
Yep. And they've been doing a lot with the Flyers this year, which I think is important.
I love how they're getting the Flyers involved with this.
Yeah.
It's because I know the first 2 years I think they were kind of feeling each other out, kicking the tires, and then with the extension of the affiliation, you're really starting to see the Flyers You can tell that they've got good relations established now with between our front office and their front office. Because I remember the first year they had, I think Bob Kelly I think was here the
Right.
first year.
Opening night.
He was the first like Flyer to be here, and now like this year we had 5 of them.
Right.
And then last year especially with like Bernie Perrant and Lauren Hart, that was huge.
You got number two, too.
There was such a big line to see him. And Bernie and Lauren, they stayed, and everybody who was in line up until the Royals decided to cut it off, every single person who was in line up until the cutoff got to see him, got to talk to them, both of them, got to have autographs. It's great to see that the Flyers are here, and they're really ramping up, like getting us involved in the Flyers family.
So let me ask you guys this: Do you see Drew relying heavily on the Flyers moving forward with this coaching search?
With David being relatively, I don't know how much experience he has or how much of a hand he's had behind the scenes, but I feel like the Flyers are probably definitely going to have a big voice in Drew's ear.
Right.
Like, personally, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see an assistant coach from the Phantoms, like maybe someone like Riley Cote, to come over and have them get some more coaching experience. Like, as opposed to being an assistant to AHL, let's see how they can run a team over in the ECHL.
Yeah, that would certainly be a big name, Riley Cote.
Especially Riley Cote, just the name alone is a big draw.
But does he bring in fans?
That's a good question.
And does he sell tickets? And those are the questions, I guess, that Drew has to ask himself. So you had mentioned David. Are you talking about David Galati, or do you think Jack is going to have more of a say than David would? I guess my question is David just going to be that silent partner, or do we expect David Galati to start taking over a little bit more of the
we really
the
can't
reins?
do anything but speculate at this point, because up until now, Jack has had strictly the Royals to focus on. Well, as far as hockey goes, being a businessman, I'm sure he has plenty on his plate.
Sure.
But now he has a second team on his plate, and we really don't know how is he going to handle that. Is he going to focus more on his new acquisition and have his son kind of be here, or is he going to be hand in hand in both?
Right.
It's really something we're going to have to wait and see how Jack will be with Allen under his wing now too.
Yeah. So my desire is really, I want to see the Flyers, I guess, almost have a say. For me, I'd love to see a former Flyer, take over in the organization. But
because I especially think in the coming years, with all the draft picks that Ron Hextall has gotten lately, you're going to start to see a lot more of these prospects trickle down to our level. Like this year, like you saw guys like Tyrell Goulbourne coming down to me, I think was a huge deal as a third-round pick a couple of years ago. He's a guy that the fans really loved up in Lehigh Valley. He made a name for himself here. Like, I feel like we're going to start seeing a lot more of these prospects coming our way in the coming years.
Yeah, that would be huge.
I'll have attendance for sure.
So Ryan, let me ask you this: Where do you see this coaching search going? Do you see the Flyers getting more involved? Do you see Drew picking, some ex-players? There's 3 right off the bat that I can think of that everybody here, in the fan group page, right, has already speculated who could possibly be the next coach, and do you see it being a Flyer, or do you see it being a former Royal?
Well, I think it's the person that's going to have a say. It's going to surprise you. I think Mark Thompson's going to have a big say in who's going to pick a coach.
Right. So you actually see the announcer.
Yes, because Mark does a lot behind the scenes.
Really?
He's been with the team just for as long as I can remember. So
Interesting.
He travels with the team.
Yeah, Ryan Crothers spoke about that a little in his speech today. He mentioned what a big part that Mark Thompson was with making those trips a lot easier on the guys.
Right. So it'll be interesting. A lot of people have speculated Crothers. For me personally, he's not my. I'm not his biggest fan. I'll just leave it like that.
It's like
I wouldn't.
Is this his second year coaching with? Was it
Charlotte?
Yes.
Charlotte. So and I think he's doing a good job down there. You saw some of his players here tonight.
There were a lot of his guys here.
Yeah, and it sounded like they were traveling. They were in the.
They were going to Boston.
So they were going to Boston. Okay.
And they were here. They were there Friday as well.
Yeah, and he owns a stake in that team too, from what I understand.
I believe so. Yes.
So he's been a popular name. I know there's been some uproar from some of the fan base that really don't like him.
I don't think they'll have to worry. I think Crothers is too rooted there now for him to come back here.
Yeah, but tonight would be the night that you'd start to hear those things with.
Oh, absolutely. Especially now you know that Corville's not coming back. You're seeing Crothers having success as a coach down there.
Yeah.
When he was a player, and I'd say he was scratched, you'd see him with his suit and tie on the bench. So like you could see, like even then at the end of his playing days, he was starting to get prepared to be a coach.
Right. So another name, another fan favorite that we've read about and a lot of people have speculated, and I don't see it because I just think it's too early for him. Is Yannick Tifu? He was on the team last year. He's up in, I want to say, Ontario, Quebec. So he's in Quebec right now.
Somewhere in the Great White North.
Yeah, he's running a junior club right now, Ryan.
He's running like one of the junior clubs near his hometown.
Right. So, I mean, he's in his hometown. Canada's where he, his heart lies.
Because his last year, he initially did not sign here. He signed up with Brampton
Yeah.
because he wanted to be closer to home. And then eventually, we traded for him. We kind of put the kibosh on those plans for him for a year. Not that he really seemed to mind that much, but
no. And
I think that he's starting to get more rooted at home. And I think even if he did come here to coach, I don't think it would be as a head coach because that's a pretty drastic jump to go from juniors up to coaching essentially a professional team. That's a pretty big jump.
Right.
I mean, I would say I would not be surprised at all if he would get hired somewhere as an assistant first. Because it's a big jump to go from coaching juniors up to coaching professionally.
Right, and then the other internal candidate that would be almost an obvious choice. And to be honest, I don't know enough about him as a Royals fan, but that would be Kirk McDonald, who's currently the defensive coach, and I just find it ironic. He was a forward in the ECHL with the Royals, and he's coaching the defense, but. That's another story. That's another topic we can discuss. But he has the coaching experience. He's had Larry behind him as a mentor. I guess as his mentor.
And you gotta imagine that he's starting to get even more pointers now, knowing that this is Larry's last year.
Yeah, and he's got the players' buy-in from what I can tell. So, does Drew go to a guy like Kirk, who seems to be the conservative choice? I would say the conservative candidate.
I'd certainly have to consider him the favorite at this point in time.
Yeah.
Because it would be about as seamless of a transition as I could possibly imagine.
Right. But let's not forget, this is the ECHL. They're adding teams all the time. We got a team in Worcester.
Or in Alaska's case, losing a team.
Yeah, and that was my next topic there is Alaska. Alaska's teams is gone at the end of this year. Or suspended, I guess, as they're calling it right now.
Well, they said they were ceasing operations.
Yes.
Whether that's permanently or just temporarily, I'm not quite sure.
But, they will not be here next year. So, there's a head coach who's going to be searching for a job. And Ryan, do you have his name?
Rob Murray.
Rob Murray. I don't know enough about him, but, Ryan, do you have, his...
Yep. He's been with the Alaska Aces since 2011, and he's led them to one Kelly Cup back in 2014.
So he's won a Kelly Cup. What's his win-loss record?
This year, he's 28, 20, and 8.
Okay. So, he's another name I guess you could talk about. Does he fit the bill of meeting, a Drew Bell and Jack Galati or even David Galati's needs at this point?
Well, I can certainly imagine the fans would be happy to bring in a Kelly Cup winning coach.
Yeah. And, that's another thing. How do you, it's easier for you to sell somebody who's been here before and has won before than it is a new coach or a coach with no head coaching experience.
It's certainly more likely than a newcomer such as Tifu.
Yeah, but we've seen former Royal players be successful in this league as a head coach. So, Ryan, I know you can name them off like the top of your hand faster than any of us can, but who would be one of your, I guess, current ECHL former Royal coaches that you'd love to see here?
Here? Probably Kale McLean, but he's with Adirondack, so I don't see that happening.
Yeah, and Adirondack, we spent, New Year's Eve there this year. That's an awesome town for hockey. Kind of a small arena, I thought.
Yeah. And I believe Coalition from Adirondack actually bought the team from the Calgary Flames, so...
Right.
Adirondack is finally going to be holding down hockey, I think it was. So, they've had a lot of shuffling the last 5 years there. So it's great to see that Adirondack will finally get that peace of mind there that their team won't be going anywhere now.
Right. What do you guys think about maybe a guy like Todd Perry or Patty LaBelle at the end of the year hanging it up and Larry having that conversation with them? Because aren't they both local?
Yeah, they are both local.
But I'm with like Deso Tifu. I don't think they're going to jump right away. Maybe an assistant coach.
Yeah.
I could certainly see, like, if Kirk McDonald takes the step up to head coach, I could see Todd Perry sliding in there at that defensive coach.
Yeah.
Especially because at that point, you've got a veteran defenseman sliding into that role.
Right.
Instead of like an offensive-minded guy coaching defense, you've got a defensive-minded guy now coaching the back part of the Royals.
Right, which would be very important, I guess, at this point to really solidify that position because, you can go back to the Flyers here, not to make the, I guess to make the tie into the conversation, but the Flyers prospects coming up is very defensive heavy. There's not a ton of forwards that bring, in my opinion, that don't bring a lot. They just don't bring scoring.
There's a couple of names that rent, like Oscar Lindblom is looking absolutely fantastic. He's been absolutely lighting it up, and I wouldn't be surprised if they give him a real good look to come up next year. But you're right. You look at the Flyers prospects, like you see, like there's 3 really nice looking goalie prospects in the pipeline. Great defensive prospects on display in Allentown, but you look at forwards, you don't see that same kind of star power, I guess you would call it.
No, you don't. And the guys that they did draft, I guess to bring in that star power, I mean, Travis Konecny right off the bat is the first guy I can think of. And, you don't even see him in the minors. I mean, he just made the jump right away.
It's like he dominated juniors. He got his chance this year, and him and Provorov both made the jump this year.
Right, and the guy that they drafted this past year, I mean, let's be frank, I don't see him coming over any. I mean, he's in the juniors right now.
Well, he did sign his entry-level contract, so there's a good chance you could actually see him in Allentown soon on an entry, like on a tryout basis.
Right, which would be intriguing.
Since he's not of North American descent, even though he's not 20, he could be with the Phantoms next year.
Right. So, I mean, it would be interesting to see how that situation plays out, and a lot of us will be able to watch it, but...
Well, I mean, I certainly think that, because it wasn't for the doping scandal going on with Russia at the time. I mean, otherwise he would have been a top 10 pick, I believe, and we got him at 22nd overall. So I think, especially with football now, we're gonna have an opening there at center. I could see this guy coming in and taking it over because he's been displaying some great skills so far.
Well, that team has enough centers. I mean, let's be frank.
There's definitely a logjam at center.
I mean, they just overpaid for, in my opinion, Bellemare. They overpaid for Neuwirth. I thought they undersold Mark Streit. I don't see the need to bring in Fibula and add another $5 million to the books next year. I thought that was kind of a strange move because here's a general manager that's...
It's definitely not something we saw coming at all.
No, but here's a general manager who complained, since day one that he took over as a GM that he doesn't have cap space, right? Last offseason, he goes in and frees up a ton of money. I mean, he got rid of LeCavier. He somehow managed to trade the Pronger contract to Arizona.
The Coyotes needed to hit the cap floor, and taking on that contract helped them do that.
Right, so here was his opportunity where he had the cap money, right, to really morph, I guess, this team, right, into what he wanted. And surprisingly, he paid the guys that were already here. He paid Braden Chen. He paid Coots. I believe he renegotiated Voracek at the end of the year as well, too, last year.
I believe it was
2 years ago.
It was 2 years ago.
Was
I think
his
new salary didn't kick in until this season.
Right. And, that offense has certainly underperformed. So for me, to add another playmaker in Fibula instead of adding a scorer, I thought was an interesting move, to say the least. But I really didn't understand it.
It definitely seems strange to me, but that you hear Hextall, they've had their eyes on this guy for a while, and I feel I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a fan of that contract, but fortunately there's only one more year, $5 million. It's only one more year after this season. But I think as a player, I think he fits in really well on this team, especially because Couturier, I love the guy, but his offensive abilities just haven't developed yet, or if they have, we've seen what we're going to see out of him offensively.
Right.
Great talent, but he doesn't really seem to consistently produce offensively.
Well,
so bringing in Fibula will allow you to put him back on the third line where he can focus on being defensive, and then with I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'm not
Yeah,
quite,
I mean, if we're butchering it.
I'm not quite used to it yet. It's only been a couple of days that he's been with us.
Right.
But that first game already, you could see he was making himself known. He was setting up some great opportunities. Ended up scoring the game-tying goal with about 10 minutes left in the third period. He seems like he gels really well on that second line.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see.
Like
Even
guys
if
always look really good their first couple of games, but we'll have to see how he looks as the season wraps up.
Right.
Because I mean, like he'll be here next year unless we buy him out with that no movement clause.
Yeah. Well, at least in Philadelphia anymore, it seems like these trade deadlines are almost like Christmas morning for us. The Sixers, I think, it's safe to say, disappointed all of us in this last deadline. I thought the Flyers disappointed me, but let's not forget we have another trade deadline coming up this week, and that's the ECHL with the Royals. So with it being Larry's last year, do we see the hey, I'm all in, Texas Hold'em, push the chips in?
I don't see why. I mean, if you look at it from Larry's standpoint, he has nothing to lose.
No, he really doesn't.
He's going to finish out this season regardless of what happens. He doesn't really have to think much about repercussions after this season because for him there are none. Unless he maybe wants to come back to the ECHL and he makes some disastrous moves that cripple the team.
Well, he's not Chip Kelly. I mean,
only Chip Kelly can be Chip Kelly.
That's true.
Well, maybe Brian Colangelo, but that's about it.
But I mean, by Chip Kelly, I mean, Chip at least at this point has seemed to really burn all of his bridges in the NFL, to say the least. I think he's burned half of them in college, but he's a well-respected guy in the ECHL. Just talking to all the players that we've gotten to talk to over the years, all of them were there for the most part because of Larry. I don't think I ever talked to a single guy doing an interview who wasn't huge about Larry Corbo. Yeah, so I'm really interested. Is he retiring to spend more time with? Or not retire, I guess. Is he quitting to spend more time with his family, or is he simply quitting because he's waiting for a better, high-paying job?
I mean, I think this is a move that we all saw coming, but we didn't really want to admit to it. Especially with he didn't really seem to get along all that well with the Flyers brass,
right?
Especially with the Derek Mathers situation.
Yeah,
but, I mean, you definitely saw this year that he's been playing much nicer with them, and they've been playing much nicer with him as well. But
they have.
You think about it, the Flyers and Larry Corville have two very different goals. Larry Corville wants to win. The Flyers want to see their guys develop and eventually contribute on the big club. So honestly, I think it's just like a philosophical difference between the two sides, and I think it's more or less kind of like a mutual separation. I don't think we've seen the last of Larry Corville as far as a coach goes, but I don't think he would be too surprised. He just takes the year off, spends some time away. Somebody will eventually come knocking on his door to coach again, though.
Do you think he's going to end up in the ECHL or the AHL?
That's a good question. I mean, honestly, if we know what he wants, he's going to want something like he's got here, where he's not just the coach, he's also in control of roster moves. And it's going to be a matter of, if an ECHL team is willing to give him that kind of a rope, I think he'll take it. But if no ECHL team gives him that, I wouldn't be surprised to see him go up to the AHL.
That's more of a humility move, though, I think, because I would see him going to the AHL as an assistant. He's always been honest with us, especially talking to him. And beginning of the year, I mean, I know Jason's first question anytime we were in the media room was, "Did you interview anywhere else?" And we know he interviewed for Hershey a couple years back.
He has over the years.
Yeah, and I believe was it San Antonio last year. And good for the Royals, for allowing, I guess, their coach to be able to go out and look for those opportunities.
I mean, as a minor league team, you can't expect your guys to hang around forever.
No, you can't. But at the same time, he's got a winning record in the ECHL. He's won a lot of games. I know he's, Ryan, is he top 5 in the ECHL in wins?
Yes.
So, and I know he was, let's be honest, he's eyeing that record, that total wins record. Can you blame him? No. So I wouldn't be surprised to see him turn around and try and make a run for that. I really wouldn't. I don't know about you guys.
I think it's all about what's his long-term goals.
Yeah.
Does he think he can make it as a coach in the NHL?
I was thinking back to Canada because that's what he told us multiple times after a game.
Yeah.
He wants to go back home to Canada.
Well, I mean, he's got a home in Palmyra, so...
I think his ideal job would be if Hershey would offer him an
Yeah.
assistant's job, I don't think he would even have to think about it. He'd take that right away.
Well, and I think he liked the Capitals organization too, with Washington.
Well, he definitely had his glory years, I guess you could say, with the Capitals organization.
Yeah.
Like the Cup win, just off the top of the head, but it seemed like a lot of their big years, a lot of the big names in the Royals past have come with that affiliation.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point, it's an exciting time here in Reading. There's certainly a lot more to sit here and talk about. We're 45 minutes into this podcast already, which is pretty cool. We had a goal to set 30 minutes, right? And to be honest with you, we were worried about not having enough content. But as you can tell, we could sit here for hours and talk about where does this organization go from here. But we're going to save that for another day. The guys that are still listening, thank you for listening. We just ask that you be kind of polite, I guess you could say, in the comments. But certainly, fan feedback would be awesome. Is this something that you guys are looking forward to? Is this something you want us to continue? And what else do you want us to talk about? Are there other teams, other subjects? Do you want us to concentrate mostly on what's going on in the ECHL? Do you like the minor league sports coverage we've been offering in the past? So we're looking forward to hearing what everybody has to say. But keep in mind, the goal for this too is we're giving more exposure to Ryan. It's not really about myself or Dave at this point. It's
not that we don't enjoy it.
No, and we do. It's a bunch of buddies sitting here talking hockey. What don't you like?
There's really nothing to like about it. Nothing to hate, I should say.
Yeah, and for those of you that don't know, myself and Ryan, we're big Philly sports guys. Dave is not, so there's going to be plenty of banter, as we continue here. He's a Cowboys cockroach. We'll just be frank and honest. And as an Eagles fan, we really don't have a lot of agreements. I guess you could say we don't have a foot to stand on either.
Hey, I've been upfront about the Eagles. I've given honest assessments.
You have, but you're strangely a Flyers fan, which I
didn't choose
find
the
kind
Flyers.
of weird.
They chose me.
They chose you? Nice. And then when it comes to baseball, you're a Braves fan. So that it'll certainly be...
I do get to watch a lot of the Phillies, though, with my wife being a big fan of the Phillies.
Yeah, so it'll certainly be a good time for everybody to tune in and just really hear us, I guess, fight back and forth as we continue. So with that being said, thank you. We look forward to you guys joining us in the future, and go Royals.